Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the Illusionary Artist Reg Machine that's just gone live in North America. So, this event is actually a Gung-Ho owned property, which means that it will be returning on a regular basis because there is no licensing issues, along with the fact that there should be a reasonable spread of buffs every time it does rerun, especially for the top rarity cards. But with that being said, like the Mystics Inspectors and Sin Dragon Key Heroes events, the Illusionary Artists event cards will be lumped in together with the regular base rare machine with a sprinkling of Godfest exclusives added into the mix. And unfortunately, the event cards or artist cards only comprise 27% of the total rolling pool, with Godfest exclusives eating up 11.25, and 61.75% of the rolls are probably just going to be undesirable, sad stuff. So, it's definitely not going to be the most fun event to roll in, but of course, when you do hit that 1% chance to get Atelie, you're going to have like the greatest rush you can possibly imagine. But that also means that it's going to be challenging to actually roll the top rarity cards. And in fact, there is no monster exchange option, which means you actually just have to roll these cards. So it's going to be possibly a frustrating experience to roll in this event, and at the same time, I feel like this event is definitely not catered well for newer players. And if you are a player who has like a newer or less developed account, this is possibly going to be a poor event for you to spend your stones in, because any of the 62% of the undesirable stuff are going to come out and they're very base form. Like, it's not going to be like super reincarnated or reincarnated, which would at least save you a bit of the hassle, so to speak. This is you have to go through the whole process all yourself, which again may be difficult if you're a newer account. And then along with the fact that while the top rarity cards are strong and powerful leaders, they are difficult to actually team build for potentially, because they do require 28 skill boosts. They also require you to actually have 7x6 somewhere as like a different card. So basically the idea is you enter the dungeon with a leader that has 7x6 and you swap into position. So it can, again, be another extra hurdle for you to overcome. And you can obviously make the argument that, well, these new players can, grow into these cards. And sure, that definitely could occur, but by the time they reach that growth necessary, maybe the artist event has already come back. And in theory, at least the way I like to do things, is that I like to roll for things that are valuable nowadays, or at least valuable possibly in the short term. Like, it would be good very soon. And of course, this is a decision you have to make based on your own individual monster box. So I feel like for newer players, this event is something you probably don't want to roll in, because sure, you might get some good stuff, but you may not actually be able to actually take advantage of it. And regular, seasonal Super Godfest or Super Godfest that have strong rolling rates tend to give you better value overall, because those misses could be still cards that actually become usable right away. So again, it all comes down to where you are at this point in time. So what are the pros and cons of this event? So good stuff are that weapon assists are featured on all the cards. And in fact, the weapon assists are actually quite strong across all rarities, which does give much more value if you do actually land those event cards. The top rarity cards, all three of them are actually incredibly strong leaders, and if you have a box that can support them, they can in theory clear essentially all given content in the game. They are strong because they utilize 7x6. They have 16 times effective health with dual leaders, and they are a high skill cap but also high reward leader if you are able to play them well. And like I mentioned beforehand, this event will occur on a regular basis, and it is, I guess, inexpensive to roll. It's only 5 stones per roll. The drawbacks of this event are low chance for event cards, lowish chance for Godfest exclusives, so the chance of getting something truly sad is essentially 62%, which is not the greatest, but maybe you can justify it there. There are no monster exchange options. Top rarity cards do require you to have deep monster boxes overall, and again, those bottom rarity stuff, they're not going to come evolved, or not like the junk cards, so to speak. They're going to come unevolved, and it takes a lot more effort to actually make them usable. So, as I mentioned already, 3% chance for 7 stars, 24% chance for any of the 6-star event cards. There's some smattering of Godfest exclusives. And then let's take a look at the chase cards. So this chart here shows the top leaders, with Atelie being the strongest one of the 3. Prim and Kaishu are still strong leaders, but Atelie definitely takes the cake overall. And none of these cards on the top rarity can actually be used as subs, because their active skill in transforming is swapping them as your leader. In terms of the more desirable chase subs, I feel that Hands and Melty are the best ones. And then for cards with strong weapon assists, it would be Prim, Hands, Elio, and Atelie. Now, just because a card does not appear on these chase card table here, I strongly encourage all players to keep at minimum 2 to 3 copies of any given card, because it's difficult to roll back a particular card, and you never know. Maybe in the next rerun, some of those cards that I didn't mention on that table there end up becoming incredibly strong. Like Ashley, for example, didn't have that much value, I feel, beforehand, but with her new weapon assist, suddenly she's looking incredibly appealing. And this can happen for any given card. And now I want to take a look at all the cards individually to give you a bit of a better idea of what you can expect. So this is me trying to like compromise and find workarounds for like my problematic risks. So a bit of an article, smallish article, and then narrating a bit more alongside of it. So let us take a look at Atelie. And Atelie, like the other 7-star cards in the event, are going to follow a similar template. So all Kaishu, Prim, and Atelie, they feature 28 turns before they can actually transform. And then when they do transform, all of them are just going to swap into position as your leader. So the idea of utilizing these leaders is that you enter the dungeon with someone with 7x6. I'm just going to say Sophie, just to pick a name out of the hat. Sophie has 7x6 in her leader skill. So you enter the dungeon, you have the bigger board. Eventually, Atelie does transform, and then you swap her into position. Now, you're playing on 7x6, with double Atelie or double whatever leader it may be, and then you start going on your merry little way. And that's what makes them quite strong. A bigger board is essentially always better. There's 12 more orbs. It's a big increase overall. And when they do transform, they have 16 times effective health, which is essentially the highest we're ever going to really go. There's one other card that's a little bit higher, but essentially 16 times health is like the benchmark of like the high amounts of effective health. And they have that high amount of effective health, and with the bigger board, activation becomes a bit more consistent. For Atelie in particular, she is much more difficult to use compared to, I feel like, almost any other given leader, because her leader skill requires you to match all 5 colors and hearts, which is definitely doable, in order to tap into your 75% damage reduction per leader and get your bonus combos. And then, for every 4 match you make, you will add a scaling attack multiplier and auto follow-up attack damage. And this is quite unique and exciting when I really think about it, because in theory, if you can match a ton of these 4 matches, your attack multiplier actually becomes incredibly high. And this is partially why rainbow teams and Atelie in particular can be strong, because in theory, if you have perfect puzzling skills, you have a Raffine in order to get the spinner and the extra movement time, you can spin out perfect boards every single time. And the damage multiplier will be huge, and it lets cards deal meaningful amounts of damage, not only if they're main, but they're sub-attribute. So at this point in time, as a little side tangent, hitting damage cap on a card is pretty easy. Hitting double damage cap is actually reasonably easy as well at this point in time, and dungeons are definitely built around the notion that you can deal large amounts of damage. So they started increasing like the health values or effective health values, which means your sub-attributes now have to start putting in work. And if you're a monocolored team, any sub-attribute that is not matching your primary color is essentially useless. Whereas rainbow teams, their sub-attributes are meaningful. So a sub-attribute that doesn't have a matching color gives a 30% value of what it should be. Where if it's the same color, like say dark, it's only 10% for the sub-attributes. So like mono-dark cards for mono-dark teams can deal possibly reasonable amounts of damage with their sub-attribute, but it has to be incredibly high amounts of personal damage because it's only 10% of what it could be. Rainbow teams have that 30%, and with Atelie's high attack multiplier, you have thrown an attack buff, you can hit huge amounts of damage on sub-attributes, which in turn can make your damage output amazingly high. So, in theory, with Atelie, if you can match well enough, you can match those 4 matches, you can deal huge amounts of damage. But of course, the risk comes down to, well, what if I don't make enough 4 matches? Well, you're going to deal insufficient damage, and maybe that pushes them spawn into execute and you die. So it definitely, I feel like Atelie is probably one of the hardest leaders to play from a puzzling aspect, but if you are able to do so, she can in theory clear essentially everything in the game. For her weapon assist, it has the 5 attribute awaken, which is absolutely nuts when you think about it in terms of raw damage addition to a card, but it's the opportunity cost of, did you actually have 2 Atelies? Because if you have 1, it should definitely be your leader. Like it really should be your leader. And in fact, you throw up it as like showing as a leader for your friends to take, you're going to get lots of PAL points, because I have heard distress from people saying that they can't find Atelie friends. So maybe you can be that nice friend. For Kaishu, similar idea of transforming aspects, but they have a scaling multiplier that relies on light and dark matches. So you need to match 4 light or dark orbs for your scaling multiplier for the bonus combos. And the bonus combos are important because Kaishu's damage reduction triggers when you hit 13 or more combos. So when you match 13 or more combos, you have Big Bulk. Their active skill will help you do that because they give you 1 turn of Void, Damage Void, and then 1 turn of 2 times attack for this given monster. So Kaishu's hitting so much damage anyways. And then you get a board unlock and change Fire to Light, Wood to Dark Orbs. So in theory, if you can match all the Light and Dark Orbs as TPAs, you're going to have that consistent activation. Kaishu can clear lots of content, but at the same time, I feel like Daytona, who's like the other supreme TPA-oriented leader, is like just so much easier to play by comparison. Daytona is match 1 light TPA and 1 other combo. Hit 10, things die. Kaishu requires so much more puzzling and matching, and it's a bit more awkward to team build because you need 3 more skill boosts. You need to make sure that 7x6 swapping card, and like I feel like you have to jump through a few more hurdles. It's not to say that they're a weak leader, it's just that they're not the same power level as Atelie, and they require similar amounts of effort. Their weapon assist is Bind Immunity, double Team HP, double TPA. So obviously it's great for TPA-based teams. In theory, Daytona can slap that on himself and be Bind Immune with the HPs and more TPAs for his attack multiplier buff, because that's pretty wild. Or even on other cards, because the active skill is still 3 turns of Void, Damage Void, 3 turns of bonus attack, and 15 turns of Light, Dark, Skyfall. So maybe slap this on your Halloween Cotton, let's say, and now you have another option for Void, Damage Void. Possibilities are pretty great for your TPA-oriented teams. For Prim is similar to like Seawolf in the sense that they want red and like fire and water matches, and their scaling multiplier triggers off exactly 5. So it could be a column, could be a line, could be an L, whatever you want. As long as it's exactly 5, you get the damage you get the bonuses that you're entitled to, including combos, and then their leader skill triggers the damage reduction when you match 11 or more combos, which again can be quite doable. So in theory, you could pair Prim with Seawolf because they have essentially the same active skill, like leader skill requirements of like fire water matching. Prim's active skill gives you 1 turn of Void, Damage Void, which is great because there's no VDPs to be found, and you wouldn't be able to match VDP because it's not exactly 5 connected orbs. And you get bonus attack multiplier for Prim, and then unlock the board and change Light to Water, Dark to Fire orbs. So your orb generation, you can double Prim, you get Prim Seawolf, but the point is, like, I feel like Seawolf, like, same amount of effective health, but a bit easier to play by comparison. So it's not to say Prim is weak, but they require more effort, especially if you have other options. And their weapon assist, I feel, is quite unique and powerful. It's Bind Immunity, double Team HP, double L, and then the active skill gives you 4 turns of subs doing more damage, 4 turns of 50% damage reduction, and then 4 turns of Void, Damage Void. And that's what's quite unique and powerful about this weapon assist. How many things have 4 turns of Void, Damage, Void? Virtually none. So there will be instances where you need to have more Void, Damage, Void. Maybe it's multiple back-to-back spawns. Maybe you created a farming team, and that is actually riddled with Void, Damage, Void encounters. Like, 4 turns of cancellation is a huge deal overall. And because it's so unique, I feel like it's definitely a weapon assist I would like to have, especially if I have other leaders and I don't need to use Prim as a leader. With that being said, if you don't have other good leaders, definitely use Prim as a leader, but once you start getting other options, you could definitely make the switch overall. And now we come to the 6-star cards, and the 6-star cards all have to be rolled. And with Elio, I think they're actually potentially a strong sub if we had a good row-based team to truly utilize them on. They have 3 skill boosts and 2 turns of haste, so 5 effective skill boosts is great. And then they give you double 10 combo, VDP, some rows, Dragon Killer, Tape. Pretty nice awakenings, and the active skill is 1 turn of Void, Damage Void, and then clears all awakening binds. So this is meaningful if you have Elio in conjunction with other cards who have ways to clear unmatchable. Because when you think about it, there are plenty of dungeons such as, like, say, World of Carnage 3, where on floor 3, it's unmatchable hearts. Problem right there. And then floor 4 is Awoken Bind clear for 5 turns. So if you have Elio and say like someone like Pop or Wedding Trelo who both can clear unmatchable, this can be a tremendously meaningful card to have alongside them, and you don't have to bring something like Amino Uzume or other like true clerics, because at least Elio does deal large amounts of personal damage even though they are a transforming card. They'll definitely hit their single damage cap on their primary attribute. And then the Void damage Void does alleviate some needs because you don't have to match the 3x3. You can just like brute force multiple unique combos, and if you're someone like say Rosalind who loves multiple red combos, this could definitely be a meaningful choice overall. But their weapon assist, I think, might be a more universally helpful aspect because it gives so many cool awakenings. It gives bind immunity, gives you 60% jam resist, an L, and a skill boost. Just so many different useful, valuable things. Slap this weapon assist on all of your like transforming submarines or watches like Nautilus, Royal Oak. You give them the bind immunity, you gave them the skill boost, you gave them an L, which helps you unlock the board, and for Oak it does give them more damage, and the jammer resist is just icing on the cake. From an Awakenings point of view, this is a decently stacked weapon, I'd say, overall. And then the active skill might have some value potentially as well. It's 2 turns of orb movement time, 2 turns of void damage void, and then creating a single spinner. With the movement time, you can utilize the spinner to fish out orbs, but I feel like even if you just use it for the Awakenings, it's a strong weapon assist overall. Chloe has 4 skill boosts, but a weak active when she transforms. And then she has super blind, 110 combo, a bunch of crosses. No really good place to utilize all these crosses. The active skill gives you an attack multiplier for each enhanced water combo, and then changes wood and light orbs to water. So it's a powerful orb generator, but I don't feel like she fits particularly anywhere at this point in time. And I feel like her weapon assist is a more usable option overall, with double team HP, 40% blind, 20% jammer, and a single cross. Those are actually decently strong awakenings just overall. Like, they give you bulk, some resist, and 1 cross can be meaningful to help clear sticky blinds. The active skill is a 75% damage reduction for 2 turns, 2 turns of color absorption cancellation, and then changes the whole board to water, dark, and hard orbs after unlocking it. So it's a reasonable active skill, especially if you can take advantage of multiple aspects of it, but I'm not sure if I would want to prioritize it over other weapon assist possibilities. For Hands actually is probably one of the most useful bottom rarity cards because he's great across a wide variety of teams. So his base form is 3 skill boosts and then 1 turn of haste. Nice for transforming, pretty nice overall. And then once transformed, they are like a TPA player's dream. They have a super poison resist, 10 combo, 4 TPAs, and machine killers. So against machine type spawns, obviously going to deal much more damage and large amounts of TPA, so Daytona teams are going to be happy, but it's the active skill on a 4-turn cooldown that gets them to the next level. It gives them 1 turn of color absorption cancellation, which is great, and 1 turn of void damage void. And as I mentioned of Kaishu, who does solve his own problem, any TPA-oriented team is going to have an issue with VDP or void spawns because you're not going to be matching 3x3 when all you're doing is TPAs and the cards don't even have VDP. So Hands solves that problem, and the attribute absorption is just icing on the cake because when you think about it, there will be instances where there is color absorption. I'm just going to go back to World of Carnage 3 because it's a good example point here. They have many void spawns sprinkled throughout the dungeon, and this is a great way to overcome them, but there's also a color absorption on floor, like the gore face. Like, they can absorb light or dark or whatever it may be. It could be a problematic absorption for yourself. You can cancel it with Hands. So I think Hands is just an incredibly strong Daytona sub or any like TPA-oriented team that can take advantage of his colors. And then he also changes wood to light because why not? More orbs are better. But the fun doesn't stop there. His weapon assist is also incredibly strong. I think it's strong at least. It gives you bind immunity, a team HP, team RCV, skill boost, poison resist. So nice spread of awakenings overall, bulk and health. The thing is, if you have enough health already, RCV becomes the next most important thing because sure, you can have a huge health pool, but if you can't actually heal up and, survive the next hit, problems could arise. So great awakenings over there. But this active skill on an 18-turn cooldown gives you 3 turns of color and damage absorption cancellation, along with 3 turns of 50% damage reduction shield. So quite a large amount of value squeezed into this weapon assist because when you think about it, you pretty much always need to have damage absorption in some way, shape, or form for the vast majority of dungeons nowadays. So Hands' brush solves that problem, gives you the skill boost, gives you the bulk, gives you the healing, gives them bind immunity if that's even relevant. So I like this weapon assist. I feel like it's quite flexible. It has universal value because every team can take advantage of it because it's not specific to any particular color. So if you have only a single copy of Hands and you don't have Daytona and no good place to use them as a sub, look into their weapon assist. For Melty, Melty is an incredible rainbow sub, like one of the absolute best at this point in time. So 2 turns of skill, well, 2 skill boosts and 3 turns of delay. So it's great for teams that have, like, say, Raffine on it because they need multiple steps of transformation. The delay helps with that. And once Melty is transformed, she becomes unbelievably strong. Super poison resist, guard break, skill charge, and a bunch of 4 attribute awakenings, a cross, and a god killer. So large amounts of personal damage for sure for a transforming card. And then their active skill is really a 5-turn cooldown because with the skill charge and you're playing Rainbow, it's going to be 5. So on a 5-turn cooldown, you have 6 turns of an attack buff. That's pretty great. And right alone, she already provides a 60% increase with just herself. And there's a good chance you're going to have lots of other cards on your team with the 4 attribute awakening. So you can eventually it will eventually result in a meaningful attack multiplier that is loopable. And the loopable aspect is what makes Melty important because, like I mentioned before, dealing large amounts of damage is important, but squeezing out even more damage on your sub-attributes becomes kind of like the next priority. And Melty definitely helps with that. And that's one of the main reasons why she is such a popular sub on Rainbow-based teams. For her weapon assist, it's definitely much more underwhelming by comparison. You get 3 turns of Void, Damage Void, and then 1 turn of 100% shield, but the awakenings are kind of situational. Like, maybe if you need other ways to give Void, Damage Void, sure, but I would only, if you had only one Melty, I would not switch her to a weapon assist. I would keep her in her Rainbow sub form. For Ashley, like, doesn't do too much in her base form overall, and it's her weapon assist that really gets me excited. And I want to talk about that because it gives you a skill boost, 2 enhanced fire orbs, and 2 team RCVs. So nice healing bulk. And if you can take advantage of the fire orbs, those enhanced aspects become meaningful. But it's the fact that it now comes with a VDP, just out of nowhere. Here's a VDP, and that's monstrous for any monocolored team because there are definitely going to be many subs or even leaders potentially that don't have a VDP anywhere on them, but it helps to have. So a good example of this would be Halloween Chakil on your Blackbird teams. Halloween Chakil is double 10 combo, but no way to access VDP. Slap on Ashley's Paint Roller, and now you have a double damage cap card who can VDP as well. Pretty big deal overall, and the extra healing aspect can possibly help you recover your health if you're having issues, say you were RCV debuffed. The enhanced red orbs become enhanced dark orbs with Blackbird's active skill, and the skill boost is always meaningful. So from an Awakening's point of view, this is already a strong weapon, but the active skill is actually amazing too. You have 3 turns of an RCV buff, and then 3 turns of damage absorption cancellation. Like I've mentioned so many times, damage absorption is basically mandatory to bring in any dungeon nowadays. And this is only a 14-turn cooldown, so it's definitely going to be ready when you want it to be ready. So you have Great Awakenings. You have a way to counter out the damage absorption aspect. You have the RCV buff, which might be relevant as well. And then it does change the enemy's attribute to wood for 3 turns. So I guess for water-based teams, this is obviously going to be problematic unless the spawn in question is very squishy. But for fire-based teams, it's huge because when you think about it, if you're facing a water spawn and you're a fire team, you do 50% damage. But if they're changed to wood, it is now a 200% damage output because you're double. So you went from, it's basically a 4 times increase. So for your fire-based teams, obviously the most zest. And assuming you're not water, it doesn't really matter what color you were. So strong weapon assist from Awakenings and active skill point of view. Rikuto is giving 1 haste, 3 skill boosts, but the problem is when they transform, I feel like they don't really provide much. They give you no Skyfalls, Wood Orbs more likely to appear, and then a reshuffle. So you're just praying Wood Orbs fall down. I don't like praying for stuff to fall down. I rather just use an active skill and actually change the orbs. So a little underwhelming there. I don't really foresee why I would want to use them over other options, but their weapon assist is actually pretty good. I feel it's weaker than Ashley's, but it's another VDP option. It gives you Team HP, Balance Killer, Full Bind Immunity, and that VDP. So if I have one Rikuto, I'm definitely going to convert it to a weapon assist to have more VDP options. But the active skill gives you 5 turns of attribute absorption, 5 turns of RCV, and then 5 turns of attack multiplier for wood. So it's still a reasonably strong active skill, but the fact that Damage absorption is impossible to overcome, especially when they give like 999 turns of damage absorption. So attribute absorption is still definitely meaningful, but I think as a baseline statement, damage absorption tends to be the much more dangerous mechanic to counter, and why Ashley's weapon assist I think is superior to Rikuto's. For Pastel, they give you 3 skill boosts and transform, but I think they're just a bit awkward. They have great healing output, but I'm not sure if we need this much healing output, and the fact that their active skill, while a 1-turn cooldown, which I guess you can make arguments for, actually inheriting something better over top, she doesn't have skill charge to get it going faster, and her base skill just changes hazards into hard orbs and then an RCV buff. So it's like, it does some things, but I feel like there are just better options for your rainbow-based teams overall. And then her weapon assist, I feel like will be the best form. It gives you a 3 attribute awakening and an enhanced hard orb awakening, so more healing output for the owning card and more damage output. So that's actually respectable overall, and it's a big 75% damage reduction shield for a single turn, and sub cards hit harder. So situationally, this weapon assist might be useful, could help your rainbow-based teams if you're feeling like you're struggling to heal back up and you have a free weapon assist slot. And then the last card in this event is Ren. And Ren has 2 skill boosts and 100% damage reduction when they transform, so it's essentially 3 effective skill boosts because you can't die with 100% shield. And then they have a bunch of personal damage. They have skill charge, they have guard break. Their active skill now is a 4-turn cooldown because you're going to be matching rainbow all the time. And then you have 2 turns of 50% damage reduction. So basically, half the time you're shielded, which could be meaningful potentially. And then you unlock the board and change everything to fire, water, wood, light, dark, and hearts. So if you need a shielding option on a regular basis, Ren may be an option, but I feel like, I don't know, like it doesn't fully loop. You could have awkward amounts of downtime. It's not as reliable as looping shield, so it may or may not necessarily be what you want. For their weapon assist, skill boost, team HP, double jammer resist, and a single cross awakening. So not a bad spread of awakenings, and it gives you 5 turns of 50% damage reduction, which is quite long lasting. That will last at least for that's going to keep you alive for a meaningful amount of time, and probably it's the only time you would really need the shield, so maybe it could help in that aspect. And then you get 1.5 times attack for all subs for 5 turns as well. So kind of a situational weapon assist, but I don't think it is the same level as like Elio, Ashley, and Hands and Prim. So with that being said, those are all the possible event cards you can actually roll in this event. And I do still agree that this event is a bit more catered to deeper monster boxes or players with older accounts, because while these cards can have value for sure, if you do luck out and get the top rarity stuff, you're probably not going to be able to build a team for them. Along with the fact that 62% of the rolls are going to be tremendously sad and like just completely useless for the most part. Like okay, maybe not completely useless. Like you could get a Pantheon card that has a great form at the end, but the problem is the Pantheon card comes out in their very, very base form. So you have to go through all those evolutions, which could be quite difficult for a newer account. Again, I could be underestimating your capacity to make these evolutions, but I feel like it's definitely an extra hurdle overall. So I feel that if you didn't roll this event beforehand and after listening to this video, you have ways to actually take advantage of these cards, it definitely can be worth rolling in. But if you don't have ways to truly take advantage of them, or none of them seem to fit particularly well, I feel like you'd be better off saving your magic stones for something else in the future. But with that being said, let me know what you think about this event in the comments down below. Do you think this is an event that you like to roll in? Did you roll in this beforehand? Or are you just excited to have something new? Regardless of all that, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best in your own pad adventures. Let me know what you think about like these mini articles I do now alongside of it. I might try and do this because it still hurts my wrist, but it's definitely a little less overall, and I'm trying to like weave YouTube narration and a bit of article alongside it. So let me know if that was helpful in the comments down below as well. And happy puzzling.